Right, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all back again. Right, we are going to read part two. This is the second part of reading David Walliams' The Ice Monster. So we'll do a quick recap of what we read yesterday just before we start. So we heard about all the different characters. We introduced all the different characters that live in the Chelsea pensioners' home. And then we started with part two. Remember the story? What did those scrumptious looking cakes in the bakery window actually taste like? And what was inside all those magnificent buildings? One day, the girl decided to step out of her world and into the other. Elsie was standing in front of the most magnificent building of all, the Natural History Museum. When she tried to walk in, she was immediately thrown out by the hobnail-booted brute of a security guard, Mr. Clout. Remember Mr. Clout? Mr. Clout. I don't want no trouble from filthy beggars like you, he shouted as he hurled her down the steps. Elsie was not one to give up that easily, so she sneaked in behind a gaggle of top-hatted gentlemen. At once, the girl marveled at this universe as one of wonder. The museum was a treasure trove of life-size models of whales, stuffed animals, dinosaur bones, meteorites, precious stones, dusty old books full of beautiful pictures of animals from far-off land, wood carvings of prehistoric men, and floor-to-ceiling paintings of creatures that had long been extinct. Soon she was sneaking into the museum every single day. Elsie couldn't read, but she earwigged in on the guides and soon became something of an expert. So when she saw a picture of the ice monster on the front page of the newspaper, she knew instantly that it was in fact a woolly mammoth. Elsie had learned that these creatures had lived during the Ice Age, when saber-toothed tigers, giant bears, sloths, and beavers stalked the earth. And birds like Pterotornis, a bird bigger than a person, darkened the skies. Elsie was so desperate to follow the story of the ice monster. So every morning she swiped another newspaper to search for news of the creature. Weeks passed, and then one day she spotted a jumble of letters she recognized on the front page of the newspaper. They looked exactly like the ones she'd seen on the side of her favorite building. Elsie knew she had to meet it. And there it says, Ice Monster coming to the Natural History Museum. Chapter 6, Giant Ghosts. Soon after the ice monster was found, London was plunged into the cruelest of winters. A bitter wind brought a flurry of snow. Before long, the entire city was hushed by a thick covering of white. The River Thames froze over. In this kind of weather, homeless children like Elsie perished in doorways. They would go to sleep and never wake up, to be found at dawn with a dusting of frost on their faces. Poor Elsie was huddling in her tin bath under a pile of newspapers, trying to keep warm. She looked at her hands. They were shaking with the cold and turning blue. The girl almost missed Wormley Hall. Almost, but not quite. Elsie sneaked into the Natural History Museum at closing time, behind a troop of nuns so the security guard wouldn't see her. Once inside, she scuttled along the corridors, past the dinosaur bones hanging on wires that looked like giant ghosts, and eventually found an unlocked cupboard. She crept inside and closed the door. It was a cleaning cupboard and too small in which to sleep lying down, so she slept standing up, with her head nestled between some mops. She looked not unlike a mop, as skinny as a rake with a shock of tangled hair on top. Elsie was so sure that no one would find her in there, but she was wrong. Very early the next morning, before dawn, Elsie was woken by a cleaning lady opening the cupboard door. The woman yawned and grabbed the first mop she could find. It was actually Elsie. Ah! Screamed the lady. Ah! Screamed the girl. Elsie was being held by the neck. You're not a mop, said the lady. No, I'm a girl. What are you doing in my cleaning cupboard? I was sleeping. I didn't want to die of the cold. No, you don't want to do that. Elsie gulped. Are you going to tell on me, missus? The cleaning lady did the last thing the girl was expecting. She smiled. Most of the time, grown-ups treated urchins like Elsie with cruelty. Not this lady. She was different. No, you're not going to tell on me, are you? Asked the lady. Tell on you, replied Elsie, befuddled. I could lose my job over this. No, no, never. I'm not a snitch. Thank goodness for that. Me neither. What's your name? Elsie. I'm Dotty. Dotty by name, and I'm told Dotty by nature. Are you a child? The girl was confused. She thought that was obvious. Yes. I only ask because you are taller than my gentleman friend. How tall is he? Titch is shorter than you. That isn't his real name. That's the name the other soldiers give him. How old is he? He's 73. Has he shrunk? No, God made him that way. Dotty pulled out a dog-eared photograph from her pocket. Here's Titch. Elsie looked at the picture. It must have been taken a while ago, as it showed a young soldier in uniform holding a gun that was taller than he was. He is small, remarked the girl. He's bigger in real life than in the photograph. I guess that, replied Elsie. He's my hero, said Dotty, as she kissed the picture before putting it back in her pocket. So I bet you're hungry. The girl nodded. Ravenous. Elsie was always so hungry her tummy hurt. Dotty reached into another pocket. Here, have me packed lunch. It's bread and dripping. Dripping is fat from cooked meat. Smiling, Elsie took the food. She tore a crust of the bread into halves and handed a piece back to the lady. Both were touched by the kindness of the other. Elsie devoured her half greedily. It was only bread and dripping, but to her it was the nectar of the gods. Where's your mum and dad, little one? Dunno, never met them. Orphan then, are you? Suppose so. Poor thing. There's no point feeling sorry for myself. I've got to get on with it. At that moment they both heard footsteps clomping down the corridor. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. The lady lifted her finger to her lips to mime, Don't say a word, and hurriedly shut the door. Chapter 7. A Likely Story. Elsie stayed as still and quiet as she possibly could in the cleaning cupboard. Through the door she could hear the grown-ups arguing. Who are you talking to, Dotty? boomed a voice. Just me mops and brushes, Mr. Clout, sir, replied Dotty. A likely story, Dotty, the man scoffed. As the museum's head of security, I order you to open that door. I can't. What do you mean you can't? My hands have gone all floppy. What do you mean your hands have gone all floppy? Too much mopping. Well, I'll open it then. I wouldn't if I was you. Why? It just blew off in there. You did what? I did a bottom burp in the cupboard so all the stuffed animals wouldn't have to smell it. It's a really stinky one. It would have peeled the paint off the walls. That doesn't explain why you were talking. It does. I was talking to my own bottom. You were talking to your bottom? Giving it a jolly good telling off, Mr. Clout, sir. Elsie had to put her hand over her mouth to stop herself from laughing. This lady was really Dotty. I have never heard so much nonsense in all my life, thundered Clout. Now step aside, woman, or I will be forced to use force. The girl heard a little scuffle. Oof! Ouch! Get off me foot! As fast as she could, Elsie nestled herself in behind the mops and the brushes. The door swung open. Chapter 8. The Unnatural History Museum. Clout peered inside the dark and dingy cleaning cupboard. His hulking frame all but filled up the doorway. He had huge hobnailed boots on his feet, so polished you could eat your dinner off them. The man covered his nose. It don't half reek in here. That was Elsie's pong. Tell it to my bottom, replied Dotty. Just then, something caught the man's eye among the mops and brushes. "What's this?" he said, pointing at the girl's hair pointing out. "That?" asked Dotty innocently. "Yes, that! Oh, that's one of my new real hair mops." "Real hair mops?" asked Clout. "Yeah, it's great for those areas me everyday mops can't reach, like in between the dinosaur's toes." "I don't think I can bear that stink a moment longer," said the man, his eyes watering. "I did warn you, Mr. Clout, sir. Me blow-offs are really something." "They should have their own museum," mused Clout. "The Unnatural History Museum." "Very good, Mr. Clout, sir," she said as she slammed the door shut. "It's always lovely talking to you, but if you will excuse me, I need to give the dodo eggs a good spit and polish." "Dotty?" "Yeah?" "You need to get something for that bottom of yours." "I'll invest in a cork, sir." "Then we'll all have to wear tin helmets in case you pop." "That's a good point, Mr. Clout. I'll try and think of something." "Get to work." "You get to work." "I can't get to work until you get to work." "Well, you telling me I can't get to work is stopping me from getting to work." "Get to work," thundered the man. Dotty picked up her mop and began cleaning the floor. On purpose, she ran the dirty mop over his highly polished hobnailed boots. "Me boots!" he cried. "Oops, sorry, you stupid old hag." "Less of the old, please, Mr. Clout." "I need to get these boots sparkling for the visitors." "Yes, that's why they all come to the Natural History Museum, Mr. Clout, sir. They don't come to see the dinosaur bones. They just want to see their own face reflected in your boots. You better buff 'em up good and proper." Clout gave the cleaning lady a filthy look before marching off down the corridor to make someone else's life a misery. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. After a few minutes, Dotty opened the door. "Phew," said Elsie. "That was close." "If I know Clout, he'll be back. I'd better get out of here. Are you sure you'll be all right?" "Don't worry, I'll find somewhere else to hide tonight." "If you're sure." "I'm sure. Folk will be trickling in soon. Now would be a good time to make a swift exit." "I've got to ask you something," said Elsie. "Yes, dearie." "Why have you been so kind to me?" "Well, why not?" came the simple answer. The pair shared a smile before the girl shuffled off down the long corridor. "Take care, little one," called out the cleaning lady after her, "and please come back and see me very soon." "I will," replied Elsie, and she did. Chapter 9. The Devil's Work. Every morning, Elsie checked the newspapers for more news of the ice monster. Weeks passed until one day she heard the cloth-capped sellers shouting from their stands. "Ice monster to sail down the Thames! Ice monster inspected in London today! Ice monster to be kept frozen in ice in our museum!" The girl's heart pounded with excitement. Up in the Arctic, the mammoth and the huge slab of ice in which it had been found had been packed into a wooden crate full of snow and loaded onto a whaling ship. It was then transported thousands of miles from the Arctic all the way down to the mouth of the Thames. From there, it travelled upriver towards London and its ultimate destination, the Natural History Museum. The whaling ship was escorted along the Thames by a formation of gleaming U-boats of the British naval fleet, which broke up the ice to allow safe passage. The ice monster was being given a huge welcome, as if it were a visiting king or queen. Thousands of Londoners lined the banks along the river to catch a glimpse of the creature and to be part of this momentous occasion. Being little, Elsie was able to crawl under the grown-up's legs to scramble right to the front. There she could see the whaling ship and the huge coffin-like crate into which the animal was packed. When the ships had passed, Elsie raced across London towards the museum. Living on the streets, the girl knew every nook and cranny of the city. She dashed along back streets, across gardens, down tunnels, over rooftops, and even jumped onto the back of a horse-drawn cab to get there before the monster. A line of policemen with linked arms formed a wall around the museum as Londoners surged forward to see the wooden box trundle by on a carriage pulled by 50 horses. "Hurrah!" cheered the crowds. but one lone voice in the crowd somewhere was shouting something different. It was an old man with a long beard, wearing a big sandwich board over his shoulders. The words, "The end is nigh," were emblazoned across it. He held aloft a copy of the Bible and cried, "This is the devil's work! The prophecy has come true! The beast has come! The end is nigh!" Elsie tugged on his coat. "It's not a beast, sir. It's a woolly mammoth." The old man gave her a whack on the head with his Bible. "Wicked child." Elsie pushed past him, helping herself to a lump of mouldy cheese from his pocket as she did so. The girl had just reached the gates of the museum when she was shoved back by a policeman. "Get back, you revolting urchin!" he bawled as he shunted her aside. "Ouch!" she cried as she tumbled onto her back. "Don't want your sort round here. Now clear off." As the lowest of the low, Elsie was used to being turned away, but being quite strong in spirit, she was not going to take no for an answer. So she scrambled her way up the back of a gentleman's coat and trod on his top hat. Before he had chance to cry out, she leapt off his top hat and onto a branch of a tree nearby. With her monkey feet, Elsie shimmied up the tree with ease and stood on the highest branch. From there, she watched as 100 men rolled the crate off the back of the carriage. With thick ropes, they heaved it up the stone steps. The huge wooden front doors of the museum had been taken off their hinges. The crowd fell silent as the men began pushing the crate through the doorway. Would it fit without taking the front of the Natural History Museum with it? A cheer went up as the crate just squeezed through. Hurrah! Soon mutterings passed around the crowd that a very important visitor would be coming to the museum today to witness the unveiling. "She's coming here? Who? You know?" "Oh, my lord! Not her!" "Yes, her! She ain't been in ages. She's so old now. This must really be something. I should have bought a new hat." Sure enough, barely an hour had passed before the streets echoed with the sound of trumpets. All heads turned to see a golden carriage trundling along the road ahead of the carriage. Liveried soldiers on horseback blew trumpets to herald the arrival of the very important person seated within it, Queen Victoria. Right, we will leave it there for today. So, hope you are all still okay. Hope you're doing well. Remember, if you need anything from us, you can email us, go onto the website, find the Year 4 email address, send us an email. We can get you any sort of work pack that you need. Just ask your parents to ask us for it, and they can print them out and you can collect them from school. Okay, and I will be back here again tomorrow. I'll still be doing this over the weekend, so 10 o'clock both days over the weekend, and we will carry on reading The Ice Monster. Okay, so for now, take care, and I'll see you all soon. Bye, guys.